This is Israeli Technology Founders Speak, a podcast of conversations with successful Israeli high-tech and biotech entrepreneurs. With your host, Avraham Hermon. Ofer Barshem is the co-founder and CEO of CellLipo, an Israeli medtech company developing a breakthrough technology that transforms a patient's own fat into a stem cell-rich therapy for regenerative medicine. The technology has the potential to make regenerative treatments more consistent, accessible, and ready for immediate use, both in aesthetic and orthopedic medicine. Avraham sat down with Ofer to discuss the future of regenerative medicine, how CellLipo's technology works, the journey from hospital innovation to startup, fundraising challenges, the Israeli biotech ecosystem, the company's roadmap to clinical trials and FDA approval, tips for startup founders, and much more. This podcast is a creation of JMB Davis Ben David, an intellectual property law firm serving clients around the world. You have great innovations. We keep them safe. It's not enough to just have a great startup idea or innovation. If you don't legally protect your innovations, products, and brand, anyone can claim them as their own. We keep your great innovation secure. Learn more by going to jmbdavis.com. That's jmbdavis.com.
Ofer Barshem, you're the CEO and co-founder of CellLipo. Thanks for inviting me and for having me in your offices, and I'm happy to be here.
Welcome.
And I'm interested in hearing about the problem that CellLipo solves.
Okay, CellLipo is about regenerative medicine, and the concept of regenerative medicine is quite quickly becoming a major pillar in modern medicine. The concept is, what about if we could take an existing, very effective biological mechanism of action that really works well in our body and try to export this mechanism into a place where it's missing? How about if this works? So you take something that is working very well in one part of your body and you're putting it somewhere where it's missing. That's regenerative medicine. So to be more accurate, stem cells. So we are about extracting stem cells from patients' own fat for immediate treatment. So that's what we do. And now when you're asking what problems we're solving, you're asking me actually what you're going to do with this product. So it's a biological product at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Our device is a medical device. It's a mechanical solution, but the output is biological. So this biological output could then be used for two main use cases. The first one is medical aesthetics. It could be used as a filler, volumizer for facial wrinkles or other body contouring or skin rejuvenation. That's one.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is orthopedics for injecting it directly into painful joints, such as like osteoarthritis of the knee, which is a very big disorder. So these are the things that we're trying to solve.
So you're starting with a patient's fat. Do patients typically have excess fat that they want to get rid of?
Most of us do, but actually it does not require plenty of fat. The reason for coming to such a procedure would not be your excessive fat.
I see.
The reason is that our fat apparently contains a whole lot of very active stem cells that could be used. So that's why we're starting with harvesting fat.
So does anyone else use fat for these sort of treatments, whether aesthetic or medical?
Yes, sure. So about 25 years ago, it was found that fat contains stem cells actually 500 times more than bone marrow, which is surprising. I found it surprising, and most doctors don't know it even.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There are two types of existing solutions today. One is utilizing enzymes. So the enzyme actually breaks down the tissue in order to allow those cells to be isolated.
Mm-hmm.
And it works very well, but FDA does not approve it because the enzyme is considered to be risky for the patient later on.
I see.
So it's working nice, but FDA does not approve it. So cool thing is that these guys with the enzymes, they created a whole bunch of good data. So they showed that if you use those cells properly, they are extremely effective. So then the industry tried to overcome the FDA issue, and plenty of companies came up with mechanical solutions, not utilizing enzymes, but none of them does a good job on providing a stable, reproducible biological output. And when you try to look up for how many cells do you produce? What's the level of viability? And what's the level of reproducibility? It's just not there. So that's what CellLipo is trying to do.
I see.
And in one phrase, we are calibrating regenerative medicine.
Mm-hmm. So your technology is applicable for taking fat and turning it into this valuable product. And you have to take it from the individual that needs the treatment. And then at the end of the day, it's autologous cells, right?
Exactly.
Okay. And that has an advantage because you're not required to have some sort of external donor. You have the person himself, and that's probably safer as well, right?
Exactly. So it is safer. And since it's safer, also FDA looks at it as a low-risk procedure. So it's relatively easy to get it through the FDA, which is commercially, or I would say financially, super interesting.
I see. So talk about how the idea was born and how did you come to be involved in the idea?
The idea was born about a decade ago in the Department of Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery in Ichilov, the Soraski Tel Aviv Medical Center. A group of physicians led by Professor Eyal Gur, who is a plastic surgeon. He also personally lost his leg in battle in Lebanon, and he had this vision of being able to restore limbs and other tissue, human tissue, and with the augmentation of stem cells. So this is where it started. And then he recruited a scientist called Dr. Nir Shani, who's a PhD and a cell biologist. Nir is today our chief scientist officer. And together they've developed the first prototype. They wrote patents. And 7 years later, our group, which is a group of the founders group, we came along this technology. And when we heard about it, we said, this is something we want to commercialize. And that's how it all started.
I see. Okay. Can you talk about challenges that there are specifically in Israel or opportunities that there are specifically in Israel for companies like yours that are active in cell therapy?
I'll start with the positive side. So the opportunities. First, there are quite a few. So first of all, as I said, the innovation came from a hospital. So it means that there's a need. It means that, and we have great doctors who are themselves, I would say, scientific entrepreneurs. That's a good start. Also, inside the hospital, they did the first very difficult step of really developing a working prototype on very small budget with a very limited group of people. They did a great job. It took them a long time because of lack of funding and etc., but they came up with a good result with a patent. So that's the first great thing, this environment that really creates new concepts. Secondly, Israel is known for being able to manage startups on a relatively low budget. So whatever we can do with $1 million would probably require at least 5 million in the US or maybe 10.
Wow.
At the early stages of a startup, the challenge is always fundraising. And when you're able to achieve a lot with very little money, it gets you through the early stages easily, or I would say maybe a little bit more easy than if you need to burn a lot of money. So that's the second thing. And I would say the third thing is the ecosystem. So there's an innovation authority that supports companies. We are just about to submit a grant request from them, but also places like where we're sitting here in this office, which is like a building, it's a private initiative, but there are 20 companies here who are all startups. So you meet those CEOs, you meet those scientists, and it creates an ecosystem where we can really exchange ideas and contacts which are super relevant to our business.
That's interesting. So just meeting someone at the cooler or having coffee down the hall and just
talking about the challenges, then they might have an idea who would be smart to speak with. And it always, it's a good ecosystem.
So you talked about the opportunities for cell therapy companies. Can you talk about the challenges now?
Sure. So challenges are obviously funding, especially in the past 2-3 years. It's been quite a bit of a challenge funding. In general, worldwide, there's a decline in medtech and biotech funding globally. And Israel, more specifically, because of wartime and etc., the risk is obviously a bit higher. So that's I would say, the biggest challenge that we have. And all the rest of the challenges are not geographic related, but are like challenges that could be elsewhere.
I see. Okay. Can you talk about your biggest hurdles moving forward as a company?
Sure. So obviously, I cannot skip funding. That's always a big issue, but we will overcome it. The challenges would be market entry. It's always, in today's environment, companies' valuation and chances of being acquired or having any kind of a deal, more and more the market indicates that the most important thing are sales. You need to show bottom lines.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in the past, companies were sold on the basis of a concept, then a patent, then maybe a nice clinical trial. That's already not enough. Today, you really need to show some traction from the market. A very effective commercial launch is super important.
Mm-hmm.
And as a small company, you usually have one chance. If you don't get it right and you're out there in the market after FDA approval with maybe 1 or 2 years post FDA approval and your sales are not ramping up, that's not a good sign. So you really need to plan smartly how you get into the market. And for that, it's not just sales and marketing efforts. It combines a lot of things starting from the user experience. You have to think about how your users are going to like your product.
Yeah.
Because with doctors, the fact that the product does a wonderful thing to the patient is just not enough. It has to do something good to the physician as well. Or at least it has to be easy to operate.
Uh-huh.
It has to be in line with their daily routine, or else they'll just kick you out. And it has to ensure that they make more money or at least make good use of their time. So all these needs to be taken into account. And if you don't, again, even if your product is brilliant, you're just not going to be successful.
Interesting. So you really have to get into the head of those consumers, the customers who are going to be buying your products.
Of course. As early as possible.
Mm.
Sure.
Let's talk a little bit about Next October. I saw on your website that you're involved in this program called Next October. Maybe just explain in a few minutes about what that is.
Sure. After October 7th, this organization was founded by the Shai family. The head of the family is Yizhar Shai. He's former Minister of Science from Yesh Atid. And he's also a VC guy, so he's very much familiar with startup funding and startup management, etc. So the family decided to start this initiative where young startups are adopting, so to speak, those people who lost their life during October 7th and the war after. So it could be a soldier or a civilian who lost their life, and every startup that joins commemorates one of those people. So we are in charge of commemorating Shachar Cohen Miftach, who was a sergeant in a tank battalion. And we are in close contact with his family, and we do commemoration activities with them, so many things. And the idea is that instead of just mourning and grieving, or after that, we do something positive. And we show that not only we did not give up, but we're also developing new successful startups.
That sounds like an interesting initiative and moving.
Yes.
And may Shachar's memory be a blessing.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about your investment. Where's your investment from? Mm-hmm. And you had mentioned that being one of the main challenges for you and for many companies in the space that you're operating in.
Sure. So very typically, the early stage investments come from private angels. Mm-hmm. That's very typical because those VCs and professional investors, they tend to de-risk. So usually the private investors are the ones who are taking the largest risk. They exchange risk for valuation. And that's what we did as well. So we offer quite a low valuation at early stages, or quite good terms for the investors trying to create some traction. So all our initial investment come from angel investors. I would say 70% comes from Jewish people in Europe, France, Switzerland, and etc. That's due to the connections that we have there. And the rest are Israeli angels. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about intellectual property. You had mentioned patents as being something important, but not sufficient to sell your idea to a company.
Sure.
But nevertheless, how do patents play a role in your development and in your strategy?
Patents are a must-have. Without IP, you have basically nothing. Because of us, for example, we have, at the end of the day, the product that we're bringing to the market is relatively simple. And so you must build a wall around it to defend your property. So that's the meaning of IP. And when we considered licensing in this technology, the first thing we looked at after the technology itself was IP. Because if it's not patentable or already patented, there's no reason to even start. And during development, we add more and more layers of IP as we develop, because our engineers come with ideas, or we say, we want it this way, we want it that way. And patents could be not just pure technology. They could also be, as I said before, it's really important to design properly. So sometimes it's even an end user experience that you're patenting. The way that the device operates in order to make it simple. So these are things that are important to patent. And I can say that when speaking with VCs and also with strategic players, IP is the second question after show me the technology.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So let's talk about what stage you're at now and where you see yourself down the road, maybe a year from now or a few years from now.
So what we've done in the past 2 years is optimize the device, develop it, create a few generation of prototypes. And now we've finished our R&D stage. So next steps are 2 very important inflection points for the company. Number 1 is first in human clinical trial. So we really want to go into the human and try see how this works.
Is that going to be here in Israel?
Yes. The first group is going to be in Israel, and hopefully the second group of patients is going to be in Mayo Clinic in Phoenix, Arizona. We have established a great connection with this hospital, which is constantly ranked as number 1 globally even.
Very well known.
Yeah, very well known. So we hope to do some clinical trials there as well, especially in orthopedics with osteoarthritis of the knee. So that's first in human, big step for the company. And second step is obviously FDA approval. It's a 510K medical device, meaning it's not a very long way. It's not a big hurdle, but it's something needs to be done. And we expect both steps to take place in 2027.
Oh, wow. So that's soon.
Yeah.
Indeed soon.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned that there are aesthetic ramifications of your technology as well as medical. How do you balance the development of both indications? In other words, do you prioritize one over the other? How do you balance which one's more important?
That's a very good question. So first of all, until recently, we have been focusing on the technology itself, because at the end of the day, what was important for us was to be in a point where we know what's the biological output. And only the next step would be to look at the indication. So at the end of the day, the procedure for aesthetics and orthopedics is exactly the same. Only at the end of the procedure, the physician has a syringe loaded with freshly harvested regenerative cells, autologous as you said, and then he decides whether he wants to use it on your face or on your knee.
I see.
Obviously, It's a different physician, right? But it's just the injection is different. But going back to your question, medical aesthetics is a great market because it's growing rapidly, because the regulatory bar is relatively low, and because the third reason is because it's all out-of-pocket money anyway. So you don't need to be reimbursed. You don't need reimbursement codes like So if the doctors like it and they can sell it to their, it's not even patients, right, to the customers, then you're out. And there's a great expectancy to such regenerative solutions in the medical aesthetics market. So that's a first to go-to market, aesthetics, just because of that. But orthopedics is huge because in 25 years from now, the elderly population above the age of 65 is going to triple. So everybody walking down the street is going to have a bad knee. So this market is really huge. And if talking about arthritis of the knee, there are no good solutions today. A patient would get some injections for pain relief in early stages, corticosteroids, hyaluronic acid, which is a lubricant, maybe PRP, which is like platelet-rich plasma. These will all help for a while sometimes, relieve the pain. And then there's a huge gap. And at the end of this gap, you replace your knee. You do joint replacement surgery, which is, you want to avoid it.
Right.
And in between, there's nothing. And that's where we come in. So that's why this market is super, super important. And that's why the Mayo Clinic is looking at it, because there's a huge unmet need. And with a stable, calibrated regenerative product, chances are we're going to give patients a few good years. It's not going to dial back your disorder, but it might give you a few very nice years with good quality of life.
And if you can delay those difficult and expensive operations, then that's a good thing for everyone.
Yes, especially because it's not just painful, and it also, most of the patients are a bit older, and once they suffer from a bad knee, their overall health decline because you stop walking, you're not as active, so all your measurements are going down. Blood sugar gone up, and then blood pressure, everything.
Okay, that sounds good. That's a good answer. What tips do you have for founders that are just starting out based on your experience in the field, not only from CellLipo, but from other companies as well?
So when you're starting a startup, you're actually playing a role of a prophet. You're trying to imagine what the market would look like at the point of time where your product is going to be available. And with today's velocity of change, I would say, this is becoming very difficult. It's very difficult to predict what the market needs and trends are going to be like when your product is out there. And therefore, this is my tip. Understand the length of your roadmap. Understand how many years it's going to take you to get there. And try to find those initiatives or those plans where it's relatively shorter. So I mentioned that with CellLipo, we're having a 510K device.
Right.
If it wouldn't be a 510K, I wouldn't start this journey because the alternative is 10 years.
Wow.
10 years. And 10 years meaning two things. Number one, the market's not going to be there in 10 years. It's going to look very different. And secondly, you're going to burn probably $100 million or at least $70 million before you get there. And then your multipliers put you in an impossible place. So just to wrap it up in one sentence, plan to have a short program that will bring you to the market. And then you do two good things. You save time and money, but also you lower down the need to really try and predict what's going to happen.
I see. And then you also start making money.
Yeah, of course.
That's also a good thing.
Of course.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Sure.
This is a very interesting discussion for me, and I hope it will be for our listeners as well.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk about CellLipo.
So I'm wishing you and CellLipo lots of success going forward.
Thank you so much.
That was Ofer Barshem, the co-founder and CEO of CellLipo. We hope you enjoyed this episode. There are many more to come. Do you have a great innovation or startup idea? We'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to us by going to our website, jmbdavis.com. And if you go to jmbdavis.com/startup, you'll see we have a special site specifically made for startups to help startups protect their innovations. Please be in touch with us and find out how we can help you. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to bringing you the next episode. That was Ofer Barshem, the co-founder and CEO of CellLipo. We hope you enjoyed this episode. There are many more to come. Do you have a great innovation or startup idea? We'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to us by going to our website, jmbdavis.com. And if you go to jmbdavis.com/startup, you'll see we have a special site specifically made for startups to help startups protect their innovations. Please be in touch with us and find out how we can help you. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to bringing you the next episode.